Tonight we have some really spooky paranormal stories. The time I felt like something was stealing my soul. Posted by Prizog. Hey everyone, I'm kinda new here. Created this account back in last November, but I haven't really been using it until today. Long story short, I was watching YouTube videos about paranormal encounters, and some of the stories came from Reddit. So I was like, why not share mine there too? Since the community seems so passionate, I'm really excited to share this story and maybe get some answers as to what happened. Anyway, let's get into it. This happened back in summer of 2012. I think I was 16 at the time, while playing a game of football with friends. I dislocated my right knee and then had to wear a splint for a few weeks following my injury. I had a bunk bed at the time, so in order to get in bed I had to climb a ladder, which I couldn't do anymore due to not being able to bend my leg. So every night I would put my mattress on the floor and sleep there. One Friday night, as my family was sleeping, I had the most frightening experience of my life. I am a Seventh-day Adventist, which basically means that I go to church on Saturdays and not Sundays. And I noticed that on several occasions I would experience sleep paralysis on Friday nights, making me scared to go to sleep and end up tired the following day, which is what happened that fateful night. As I was laying on my back, just vibing, I guess, I suddenly couldn't move a muscle. At that point I wasn't scared at all, since this happened to me several times. I did what I always do, try moving my toes, my fingers, control my breathing, and finally retake control over my body. Only this time I felt a physical presence. I felt something pressure in my chest, as if someone was pinning me down with their knee. As I started panicking, my mouth opened ever so slightly against my will, and I felt as if something or someone was sucking something out of me. It lasted only an instant, but a quick breath came out of me. It was a bit like the Dementors in Harry Potter. Right after that, I was able to move again, got up, went to the bathroom and put cold water on my face. I then stayed there, afraid of going back to my room, but eventually I was able to sleep, and outside of minor sleep paralysis, nothing of that caliber has ever happened to me again. I would love to know what you guys think of it. If any of you has experienced something similar. To this day, I'm still trying to make sense of it. It's happening again. Submitted by Mr. Mosby 667. context, I've had many experiences with ghosts and spirits since I was little, to the point where it became easy for me to communicate with them, almost like a voice in my head. It doesn't belong to me. This also helps with my witch work, seeing as I mainly use tarot cards, a pendulum, and other divination techniques. Story: I am a witch in North VA, and because of that I often communicate with spirits and go to them for advice when I need it. About a month ago, I went to a graveyard with a friend near my neighbourhood, and while he sat under a tree, I went to look around the yard and occasionally place coins on graves I was drawn to. As I came to a certain area, I was invited to revive some advice from a spirit. I can't remember her name, and I went along with other spirits saying similar things to the first. But when I was stopped at a grave for a man named Robert, he said he'll be with you to protect you from harm, or something along those lines. Shortly after, I went on a vacation to visit my grandparents for 2 weeks. But after I came back, odd things have been happening. I keep seeing figures from the corner of my eye, hearing plastic bags move, or other objects moving. It only happens when I'm alone in a room. I know it sounds suspicious, but I've lived in haunted places. I know what it's like. As I'm writing this, I keep hearing thuds from upstairs. I'm in the basement. It's 3 a.m. Not long before that, I heard tapping on the window. I think sometime soon I'm going to sage the house again. Sometime very soon. The experience that changed me. Posted by Save King. I've heard many stories from YouTube channels about people's encounter with the unknown. Today I felt that I should share my encounter on Reddit. I have had many encounters with the paranormal since I was a kid, from seeing doors closing when I was alone in the room, to hearing people walk upstairs when I'm in the basement home alone. But this particular story has made me more aware of the unknown. Before I talk about all my experiences, I have to tell you about myself. I'm a boy. My mother is American and my father is Pakistan. I have a sister who's older than me, and that's pretty much my family. Now I want to say in advance that this post is going to be really long. So feel free to grab a cup of coffee and a blanket to cover with while you read my experience. Ever since my mother was a little girl, she had the ability to see things that no one else could see. My mother was born in Guyana, and Guyana itself has many urban legends that scare the locals. My mother would see people sitting on trees, or even sometimes they have communicated with her. She was never afraid of these things. When she was 9, she moved to New York, Queens, in her grandparents' house. She would always see a lady in white in the house. According to my mother, there was 2 spirits in the house. One was good and one was bad. The lady in white was good, but the bad one was like a little Oompa Loompa from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The lady in white would always show herself to my mother, whereas the bad spirit would only make his presence known, but would rarely show itself. The spirit once tried to choke my mother when she was sleeping in the basement alone. It even would sometimes trick her by taking the appearance of her siblings. My mother said that the bad spirit wanted them to leave the house, but the lady in white would protect them. Besides my mother, my grandmother has seen the lady in white. My mother was once sleeping with her brother in the basement when she had a dream that the lady in white was telling her to go to the back of the basement. Now, in the dream, my mother said that her brother was also there, and he could see the lady in white. My mother and her brother followed the lady to the back of the basement, where the lady in white told them to move the carpet from the floor. When they moved the carpet from the floor, they found a door there that was very small, so small that only someone really skinny could fit inside. The lady in white proceeded to tell them to open the door, and when they opened the door, they both awoke from the dream at the same time. My mother then said that they saw the white lady in front of them in the mirror. It was the first time my mother saw the white lady's face. My mother had never seen the white lady's face. She always saw the lady wearing white and could never see her face. My mother said the white lady was very gorgeous and had reddish hair. The lady in white then thanked my mother and her brother for opening the door. Since that day, my mother has never seen the white lady again until she was pregnant with my sister. Now, fast forward to when I was born. My mother had moved to Pakistan with my father. In 2007, my uncle was getting married. We went to America to attend the wedding. I was 6 at the time. We were staying in my aunt's house. Now, everyone in the family knew that my aunt's house was haunted because my mother has seen things in my aunt's house. But the only person who didn't know about it was me. Now, me and my sister would sleep in the basement while all the adults would sleep upstairs. Because my sister, who is older, wanted to watch movies with my other cousins. I remember one morning I was brushing my teeth in the basement bathroom when I saw the bathroom door open and a hand stretched inside and grabbed the door handle and began to close the door. I immediately dropped my toothbrush and ran outside the bathroom to my sister, who was in the basement with my cousins. After the wedding, we came back to Pakistan, and I would start to see a shadow figure in my house, especially in the living room. I would always tell my mother, but she would always tell me it's nothing because she didn't want me to get scared. Few years passed by and we moved from that house. My father rented the house to a family of 5. The family had a daughter who was about 6. According to the family, their daughter would always complain about a man who would come out from under her bed at night. Now that we are living in this brand new house, which was made by my father, in the new house, I would always feel uneasy when I'm alone or when I'm in the dining room. By the time I was 14, so it couldn't have been my imagination. In 2013, my grandmother from my father's side passed away, and the following year my grandfather passed away. The house in which my grandparents were living in became empty and no one was living there. Now, I know this may sound like a lie or a joke to some people, but my grandparents' house was haunted by a jinn. In Muslim religion, jinn is the most scary paranormal creature. In 2016, I decided to move in to my grandparents' house and make some renovations. My father would travel to America frequently, so it would mostly be my mother and me and my sister in the house. My mother and sister would sleep in one room, and I would sleep in my grandparents' room. The first few nights was peaceful, but 1 week after we moved in the house, I began to see the shadow figure in the house. She would frequently tell us to pray, since we are somewhat of religious. Me and my sister would always make fun of my mother, but one night, when I was sleeping in my grandparents' room, I heard my father calling me to open my room door and let him in. I quickly got up to open the door, but then it hit me. I was in America, so how could he be calling me and telling me to open the door? At that moment the door began to move like someone was trying to open it. Then I started to hear banging on the door. Now, I want you guys to know that the room my mother and sister was sleeping in was parallel to my room I was sleeping in. So if I was to open, I would be facing the room my mother and sister were in. Coming back to banging, I quickly ran and hid under my bed sheets. The next thing I remember was waking up in the morning with my room door open wide. I got up and ran to my mother, asking if she heard any noise from my room last night, and to my surprise, she didn't hear anything. Same as my sister. After this incident, I began to pray frequently and began to visit the mosque near my house. We stayed for about 4 months in that house and had many little occurrences, but the night before we left the house, I was sleeping in my room watching anime when I began to feel like someone is watching me. I shrugged the feeling off and said to myself, it's time to go to sleep. I closed my eyes and fell asleep, but after a while I woke up. I wasn't able to move my body. I started to panic when I felt the pressure of someone holding me down. Now, I want to let you guys know that my eyes were closed and I never opened them, so I could not see what was holding me down. After a while like this, the pressure on me started to fade away, but I still couldn't move. I began to say the Quran in my mind when I heard movement in the room around my bed. Then I got this feeling, sorrow, and felt like I should just die. But then it happened. Whatever was in the room came next to my ears and started to talk to me. I couldn't understand much, but then it said loud and clear that I will get you the same way I got your grandparents and their parents. At the same time, the morning prayer, Fajr Azim, started. I felt relieved and could move my body. As soon as I could move my body, I ran out of the room, outside the house, and refused to come inside until we shift the same day. I have had many more experiences, but this one was the worst of all. I would like to thank all of you who listened to my story.